We're in that time of the year where we've cleared spring practice. We're entering the summer months, and predictions will be flying all over the place. And predictions, when they're connected to Michigan football these days, also are connected, despite the contract extension, or what is technically a new contract for Jim Harbaugh, is tied to his job. What do you think the reasonable expectations are for Jim Harbaugh and Michigan football this year in regards to him seeing 2022?
It's a great question. I mean, that's the ultimate question, right? And so I think there's a couple of ways to answer this. And one is, what should it be? And two is, what will it be? Right? You know, it seems like the athletic director, Ward Manuel, has a longer leash on Jim Harbaugh than a lot of people thought that he should have. And so I think, you know, if Michigan has another 9-3 season and goes out, probably loses to Ohio State again, I still think Jim Harbaugh has his job. You know, as long as they are competitive still in those 3 losses, and you know, it's not any type of blowout. You know, hopefully Michigan doesn't lose to Ohio State by 30 plus, you know, then I think that, you know, if you get to that 8 or 9 wins, I think Jim Harbaugh still has his job, as long as, like I said, it's not, you know, you don't lay an egg at Wisconsin and go down 35-0 at halftime. Right. So, you know, on the other side, there are a lot of people that aren't happy with 9-3 and 8-4, understandably. You know, the goal at Michigan is always to win a Big Ten championship. Right now, that's really difficult because you look at Ohio State and they are a legitimate top 3 team in the country and have, you know, continue to reload. So I think it's very difficult to put a number on it. You know, how I like to look at it a little bit better is he going to be going into those last 2-3 games of the season with a shot at that Big Ten title? You know, you and I kind of talked about it before, saying, well, you know, if you put a number on it and Jim Harbaugh goes 7-5, but he loses those 5 games by a total of 15 points and, you know, loses to Ohio State 31-28 on a backbreaker at the end of the game, are you feeling good still going? You know, I don't. Are you done with Jim Harbaugh then, or is it like, oh, I actually saw something good out of that Thanksgiving Day game or Thanksgiving weekend game? And so, to me, it's more of the trajectory of this team. They obviously took a huge step back in 2020. They, you know, I think they actually took a pretty big step back in 2019 as well, ending up 8-5. So, you know, you need to see a pretty big leap forward. Do you need to see 10 wins? I don't know. I don't think, in order for him to have his job, in order for him to be off the hot seat completely, yes, 10 wins or above. In order for him to keep his job, I think 9 will probably get it done as long as you're competitive.
I think you stole a win from your team in 2019. I think they went 9-4, right? 9-4?
9-4? Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm right there with you, Justin, because I don't think you can just say, okay, 10-2 is the standard, 9-3, fire him, or whatever. Because I think you really need to look at the competitiveness in the games. And as you discussed, the progression of the offense in particular toward something that's innovative and modern and going to be able to compete with Ohio State and other teams across the country. Now, the record is the record. And long term, you know, if we're sitting here in 4 years and Jim Harbaugh's gone 8-4 every year, well, even if they're all by one loss, by one point, 8-4 is not good enough at Michigan. You're not going to compete for championships. But if 8-4 is very competitive this year, I think it bodes well, and that he should be given another shot to come back in 22.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, you know, I think here's where the fans and the media and a lot of people are divided is, you know, everyone saw what happened when Rich Rod came in and when Brady Hoke came in. And so everyone's very scared, I think, or well, half the fan base is very scared. What if you get rid of Jim Harbaugh and all of a sudden 9-3 is no longer and it's 6-6 or 3-9? You know, that's what a lot of people are scared of. And I think that's pretty legitimate. It's not that long ago that these fans saw that happen, right? And so But I think you can't be scared of what's going to happen in the future. You do have to make a decision here. So, but I agree with you. If it's a competitive 9-3, I think he keeps his job, and I think they give him one more shot, especially with a new defensive coordinator and a lot of new pieces on the offense too. I think you're going to have to see a lot of progression with that defense. This defense can't come out and say, okay, all right, we got, 3 years until this defense is really solidified. It's their first year. They're not going to give them 3 years. It's got to be really, really a solid defense by year one. And then on the offensive side of the ball, like you said, Josh Gaddis is honestly maybe more on the hot seat than Jim Harbaugh. He's in year 3 himself of transforming this offense, and not a whole lot to show for it. Shea Patterson led them in 2019 to a solid, he was pretty dang good in terms of stats, in terms of everything, but he wasn't that 5-star, Justin Fields type guy, so I think it's on Josh Gaddis. I think it's on Jim Harbaugh and Matt Weiss, the new quarterbacks coach. They need to make either Cade McNamara or JJ McCarthy into a true 5-star, Big Ten quarterback of the year type of player. And that's going to be, I think, the focus for them to say, all right, do we have a playmaker here? Let's think about all the quarterbacks that Jim has brought in. And as Shea Patterson, Shea Patterson did well. Jake Rudock did well. Wilton Spate did well. Brandon Peters was all right. John O'Korn, not good. But, none of those guys are guys that are going to take you to that next level. So I think it's really the focus is either Cade McNamara or JJ McCarthy going to say, all right, is that the dude? And can Harbaugh actually develop one of those guys to be, a true playmaker? That's a big question for me.
It's a difficult schedule for Michigan, but they've got a ton of games that could break either way. Washington certainly on that plane where you would not be surprised with that outcome going either way. Wisconsin right on that plane where you wouldn't expect. Penn State on down the line. Ohio State would be the only team as we stand right here in May that you would think, okay, that's going to be a large mountain to climb to win that game. But the other ones, there's a collection of games that are very winnable, but they're also very losable. And so, man, I could see anything from 6-6 to 10-2.
I agree. I think that's, I've seen people starting to come out with their predictions, and some people say the ceiling is 7-5, and some people say, no, that's the floor, so I agree more that that's the floor than the ceiling. If the ceiling is 7-5, this is going to be a long season for Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines. But I agree. I think, but that's where Jim Harbaugh has struggled, is in those coin flip games, right? You think about, there have been games that Michigan was probably favored to win in by 3 points or something like that, and they've come in and laid an egg. And so I think it's those types of games, the Penn States, the Wisconsins, the Indianas, that Jim needs to come in and say, hey, the pressure's on us now, and we need to go win these games. And so the one thing that Jim Harbaugh has done, he's won most of the games he's supposed to. He has. What he hasn't done is won nearly any of the games that he's not supposed to. If you want to be a great coach, you have to win games that you're not supposed to. I go back to Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State. He won so many games that he was not supposed to, and that's why he cemented his legacy, and that's why Michigan State was taken to the next level and went to the Big Ten championships and the college football playoff. So, Jim Harbaugh, there's no more excuses there, and you really have to, you have to win some of those games that you're not supposed to.
Justin, I hate to bring up the name, but Urban Meyer went 7-0 in games he was an underdog at Ohio State. That to your point right there, it rarely happened, but about less than one time a year he was an underdog and he won all those games. Of course, 2 of those against Michigan. All right, Justin Rowe, you see it on the banner. Follow him on Twitter at Justin Rowe 92, Stadium and Main podcast as well. Justin, we always appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.